Okay, let's start up by going over a quick checklist here of things you may want to have handy, as well as some safety gear that you may want to use. Next, and this is very important, make sure that you have the doors trimmed and can fit into the door sills and line up with the body line of the car. As it comes from the factory, there may be some adjustment and trimming needed, so go ahead and do that first. Okay, let's start off by mounting the standoff bracket to the frame. As you can see here, I'm actually loosening and adjusting it, but the idea is to put the 4 smaller carriage bolts through the back of the standoff bracket first and then lower it into position. Trying to thread the bolts through there while the standoff bracket is up against the frame is very difficult. Once you've done that, make sure they're loose enough so that you can actually slide the standoff/offset bracket up and down freely when you go to adjust the door. Okay, in this chapter we're going to focus on cutting the hinge slots. I've included a very basic drawing here that will give you a guideline as to how you might want to cut your holes. Your results may vary, but this is what I found when I actually cut out the holes on my door sills. As you can see, the slots are about 5/8 inches tall, which is roughly just a bit larger than the hinge itself. But I'm going to go ahead and double check my level as well with the bushings in the hinge to make sure that my height is correct. Then I'm going to go ahead and use my Dremel tool with the cutoff wheel. Make sure to use a good respirator here, as you are going to get a lot of dust particles, but you're also going to get a lot of smoke too. And we want to make sure we don't use one of those throwaway masks. Find something really good that will filter out air and dust. I'm going to use my rotary tool here to cut out the vertical lines. It makes it a little bit easier. This does cause quite a bit of smoke, and as you can see, I am using my respirator. Once you've got those vertical holes done, you can go ahead and punch it out, and you've got your basic hole that you can start with. You're going to go ahead and do a little bit of trimming as you continue to work the hinges back and forth, so don't worry about that right now. Now that we've got the hole done, we want to go ahead and mount the hinge onto the offset arms. As you can see here, I'm using a circular rasp to clear out some of the welding slag that was created when this part was put together at Factory 5. Go ahead and take out your frustration if needed. I know that's what I'm doing here. Once you've got that, go ahead and put the bushing in, and also put the bushings into the hinge itself, and slide it in and mount it onto the offset bracket using the shoulder bolt. Now that you've got that, go ahead and check the overall movement of the hinge. You'll probably note that it's rubbing on the bottom of the hole itself, but that's okay because the offset bracket is adjustable. I'm going to go ahead and mount the nut onto the shoulder bolt here to tighten up that fitting to make sure I have a nice smooth swing operation of the hinge into the hole. Tightening this bolt can be a challenge. It's a very small area in there, and what I found is that on the top you can have the Allen head sticking out on top, but on the bottom hinge you're going to go ahead and want to put the Allen head on the bottom with the nut facing on the top. It makes it a lot easier to tighten. Now I'm adjusting the offset bracket so that I can go ahead and check the fit. And you can see here I have a nice smooth motion with a full range of motion for the hinge itself. I still have a little bit of trimming to do on the inside of the door, but that's okay. Okay, let's grab our door frame and our rear door bracket and take a look at the fit here to see if they match up. If not, you may need to bend these to actually fit together. The reason we're going to put these two together now is to get the positioning for the lower hinge hole that we're going to need to cut out next. So as you can see here, I'm putting this bracket into the vise and using a little bit of force to open it up so that it will fit up around the door frame mounts.
Relatively soft metal.
Now that we got these pieces fixed, we're going to go ahead and mount the frame onto the upper door hinge. Go ahead and use the carriage bolt provided and slide it through the underneath and put your nut on top. Now that you got that done, take the hinge and push it up against the bottom of the slot and go ahead and make some scratch marks on the door where that hinge is going to actually want to go through. You can see by looking closely here how far off my original door mark was from the other side. So I'm going to go ahead and take my paint marker and trace a new section here so that I have a better reference point for that hinge. Now that I have a rough idea where I need to put my hole, I'm going to go ahead and use my cutoff wheel again with my respirator on to cut my holes. As you can see here, these holes aren't perfect. I plan on covering up the slots with rubber grommet so that it'll slide and be totally sealed. However, you may want to do a much more clean job, a neat job than I'm doing here for your own slots. But they do need to be cleaned up a little bit. They do need to be adjusted. So it's really hard to get a perfect slot on each one. Now what you may notice here when you're swinging this door is that there may be some impaired movement. For instance, here the bottom hinge is actually hitting the carriage bolt that mounts up to the offset bracket on the inside of the car. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take that carriage bolt out and I'm going to go ahead and flatten the top of that bolt with my grinder. And here is the finished product. Once you've got that bolt in there with the head grinded down, you'll notice that the lower arm and the upper arm both move in very smoothly and go through their full motion. And that concludes the cutting of the hinge slots for the doors.